Cooking oil, once considered waste, now has new hope. Who would have thought that used cooking oil could become the future of the aviation industry? Every day, hundreds of planes connect our country and the entire world. However, on the other hand, the aviation industry contributes around 2.5% of global energy emissions annually. Starting from this challenge, we present a breakthrough: reprocessing used cooking oil, a waste product that is common to us, into a sustainable aviation fuel. Because at Pertamina, we believe that a cleaner future energy starts from simple things around us. This is part of our commitment, which is in line with Aspect Cita to support national energy resilience and pave the way for Indonesia toward a new era of net zero emissions.
Kita akan mungkin jadi negara yang bisa menuju zero carbon emission tepat pada waktu yang direncanakan.
The development of sustainable aviation fuel strengthens the government's efforts to decarbonize the entire national transportation sector. Through the spirit of collaboration, we are building a sustainable circular economic chain. Of course, quality is our priority. Every batch of collected used cooking oil will undergo a rigorous selection and testing process.
Thank you. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me just to catch up with my breath first. It was a long walk from the junction just before heading down here, and it was very warm. Not to mention, I was told that I was late, so I had to sort of rush. Anyway, a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues and friends. It's an honor indeed to address you today at the Indonesian Pavilion. Allow me to extend my gratitude to Pertamina for hosting this important event and for its leadership in advancing Indonesia's clean energy transition. Allow me to extend my warm greetings and appreciation to our distinguished speakers, Mr. Odo Manahutu from the Coordinating Ministry of Infrastructure of the Republic of Indonesia, my friend Mr. Agung Wicaksono, Director for Transformation and Business Sustainability of Pertamina, Madam Lorenza Perez Bayo from the Climate and Energy IPE ECA, Mr. Rafael Rabiolo from Bloomberg, and Mr. Daniel Ahmad, who will oversee and proceed today's discussion. On behalf of the People's Consultative Assembly of the Republic of Indonesia, or better known as the MPR, I wish to convey our appreciation for the opportunity to discuss a topic that represents both an environmental imperative and an economic opportunity, i.e. the transformation of used cooking oil into sustainable aviation fuel, or better known as SAF. Indonesia views SAF development not merely as a compliance measure to reduce emissions, but as a strategic investment in industrial competitiveness, energy security, and economic resilience. Kok, tolong diganti slide-nya. This initiative is fully aligned with Indonesia's broader agenda of achieving net zero emissions by 2060 or earlier, while sustaining growth and strengthening our national value chains. Indonesia's journey in SAF begins with a simple yet powerful fact. We are rich in feedstock resources. By optimizing collective systems, Indonesia can mobilize up to 715 kilotons of UCO per year. However, less than a quarter today, or approximately 23%, is currently collected, with the rest either discarded or wasted. This highlights the urgent need for a national collection and certification system that integrates communities, local governments, and industry players into a single traceable value chain. Through Pertamina's green refinery expansion in Central Java and South Sumatra, Indonesia is targeting over 1 million kiloliter of SAF production capacity by 2030. Indonesia's projected cumulative SAF demand will reach approximately 60,000 kiloliters by 2029, By then, which with our updated production capacity, we will have around 23% of surplus available, of which can be exported. So this means that Indonesia has the capacity to become the SAF hub deployment in the Southeast Asian region. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia's next big step is to link feedstock, refinery, and distribution under one coordinated framework, ensuring that our UCO collection system is not fragmented, but nationally aligned. First, in securing domestic feedstock, we must guarantee a stable supply for the HIFA pathway by implementing a domestic market obligation for palm oil byproducts such as PFAT, while tightening export quotas for UCO to prioritize domestic use. At the same time, we need a robust national collection system so that UCO not only is treated as a waste, but instead a valuable feedstock. Second, to scale up production through innovation, we should include next generation SAF technology, such as alcohol to jet and power to liquid in our national strategic projects, supported by targeted incentives to attract investors and modernize our refining capacity. Third, in ensuring market availability, it is important for SAF to flow through dedicated jet fuel distribution networks to key airports in order to guarantee consistency of supply once blending mandates begin. If these steps are aligned, we can collect up to 715 kilotons of UCO every year, yielding around 187,000 liters of SAF supply, therefore avoiding half a million tons of CO2 annually and creating over 30,000 green jobs, which can strengthen both our local circular economy and Indonesia's regional leadership as a clean fuel hub. Ladies and gentlemen, to make sustainable aviation fuel truly competitive, Indonesia must take a phased approach, one that first anchors it in short-term pricing and feedstock priorities, and later moves towards blending mandates and market integration. Today, SAF remains 2 to 3.5 times more expensive than fossil jet fuel. That price gap cannot be closed overnight. It requires progress in feedstock cost reduction, production efficiency, and the introduction of a fiscal equalization mechanism to ensure commercial viability. Our short-term priorities in the next 5 years, Indonesia must create market conditions for first-wave SAF deployment. This includes developing a national pricing and valuation framework, such as setting minimum price floor for SAF, which will give airlines and investors predictable cost signals. Feedstock security will be strengthened by prioritizing domestic use of UCO, PFAT, and similar inputs, reducing reliance on imports. Finally, we will advance cross-ministerial coordination, aligning the work of the energy, transportation, and investment ministries, along with state-owned and private refineries to synchronize feedstock flows and early SAF offtake. Our medium-term priorities, as a focus shift to scaling industrial competitiveness and demand, SAF use will move from voluntary adoption to mandatory blending, beginning with major airports. Integration into national jet fuel distribution systems will ensure that SAF becomes part of our Indonesians' aviation supply chain, not just for pilot projects, but for commercial operations. Finally, we will provide long-term policy certainty for investors by harmonizing standards, blending requirements, and coordination under a unified national roadmap. Ladies and gentlemen, to ensure this vision is achieved, the MPR, which is my office, plays a central role as the institutional orchestrator by aligning policy, investment, and international cooperation across Indonesia's energy transition agenda. Through policy harmonization and regulatory reform, the MPR supports the advancement of key legislation such as the Renewable Energy Bill, the Electricity Bill, the Climate Action Bill, the Oil and Gas Bill, and last but not least, the Electricity Bill. MPR also facilitates government-to-government agreements and public-private collaboration, ensuring that strategic partners, including Pertamina, have the regulatory clarity and institutional support to scale up SAF production. In the global context, the MPR, again my office, helps orchestrate strategic dialogues with partners such as Singapore, Japan, and the UK, strengthening Indonesia's position in regional and global clean fuel markets. Finally, to close this speech, since I'm out of breath anyway, my office mission remains clear to you: to ensure Indonesia's SAF vision is not just a pilot initiative, but also a national commitment that empowers Pertamina to become a regional leader in sustainable aviation fuel, driving both economic competitiveness and environmental leadership. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. That's the presentation by the Deputy Chairman of People Consultative Assembly. So based on the presentation, we know there is a huge potential, around 715 kiloton per annum of UCO to utilize. So later on, we will explore in depth in regards to the challenges, opportunities, and the strategic actions to accelerate the development of UCO into SAF. So the MPR here will also enable some key policies, I guess, to enable the implementation of UCO to SAF, which align with the government timeline around 5 years for short term, 2025 to 2030, and medium term, consequently for another 5 years until 2035. So let's get on to the discussion by inviting our moderator. He is a senior expert strategy, policy, and partnership from PT Pertamina. Please welcome Daniel Ahmad.
Thank you very much. Very good morning, Honorable Pak Edi and the distinguished speakers. It was a very great speech from Pak Edi regarding the policy of SAF in Indonesia. And I think this is a very valuable material for us to discuss furthermore. And ladies and gentlemen, before we start, please let me introduce myself. My name is Daniel Ahmad, and this is an honor for me to be here moderating the discussion titled The Accelerating Sustainable Fuel, focusing on used cooking oil and its potential to be sustainable aviation fuel. And today we have gathered exceptional group of leaders from policy, industry, and global research to share the perspectives of this very important topic. Let me introduce the distinguished panel to join Pak Edi in front on the stage together, please. Yes, if you don't mind. And I will invite other panelists to join with Pak Edi. Let's start from the online channel. We have Mr. Odo Manuhutu, who is joining online. Mr. Odo is the deputy of coordinating ministry for connectivity, and he will share his perspective of sustainable aviation fuel from the transportation sector and infrastructure. Welcome, Pak Odo. Next, Pak Agung Wicaksono from Pertamina. the Director of Business Transformation and Sustainability. He will also share his perspective from the industrial view. Next, we have Miss Lorena Perez. Please welcome to the stage. Miss Lorena is from IPECA, and she will share the global perspective of SAF and her expertise, also the connection with the UN entities, right? And for today's session, we're supposed to have one more speaker actually, Miss Luisa De Moro from the Bloomberg BNF, but unfortunately she couldn't attend the session due to her health condition. So we send her our best wish to Miss Luisa De Moro to have a fast recovery. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Not to further ado, before we start with the presentation from the panelists, please let me raise one question to Pak Edi, just continuing the previous presentation, Pak Edi. In your perspective, how can Indonesia's current regulatory framework, including the mandates, incentive, and taxation, be optimized and standardized to attract the necessary private investment and accelerate the construction or retrofitting of biorefineries needed to mass produce the SAF beyond the pilot podium, sir?
Thank you. As I mentioned before, the key to our SAF production is the availability of feedstock supply. That is UCO. Currently, as I mentioned in my earlier address, only 23% of UCO production across the country is being collected, with the rest either discarded or just simply wasted. And this is something that we need to strengthen further, is a coordinated collection system. Because UCOs are collected typically in households, restaurants, establishments, cafes, hotels, and a coordinated collection system can result in a seamless collection of UCO as feedstock. In addition to that, as Pertamina is currently working on increasing their capacity for refining UCO, and I believe by 2027, 28, and 29, we will see a progressive increase in Pertamina's production capacity. We will have a significant production of UCO, of which Indonesia will be able to export its excess SAF to regional markets. And I believe I have strong confidence that Indonesia can become a strong SAF hub for the Southeast Asian region. In addition to that, I think the distribution should also be strengthened, allowing us to distribute UCO to SAF production centers that currently Pertamina has in South Sumatra and Central Java, two of the most populous islands in Indonesia. And then the distribution needs to be followed up to the various airports across the country. For your information, who are not very familiar with Indonesia, going from the eastern part of Indonesia to the western part will require you to fly for approximately 7 hours. So it's a vast country, and we have so many airports in between. I think the first 16 airports, which are major airports, considered major airports in Indonesia, should be the first and foremost targets for SAF production and distribution centers. But overall, I think the coordination at this point between the various ministries, various agencies should be strengthened, so that the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Investment, the Ministry of Industries can all can issue a coherent policy and regulation allowing the collection, the production, the distribution of SAF to be conducted in a systematic and efficient manner in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the feedstock availability, the feedstock security is very take a very important role here. So yeah, thank you very much. Very well, ladies and gentlemen. Next, we can continue the next perspective sharing from the online side. So I would like to invite Pak Odo. Yes, can you hear us, Pak Odo? I think the audio from the online channels not yet.
I can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Yes. Thank you, sir. Yes, please, Pak Odo, could you please share your perspective regarding the SAF from your expertise, sir? Time is yours, sir.
All right, thank you so much. My apology that I joined you through online, but I'll try to be brief. First, let me thank Pertamina for the invitation, and my sincere regards to also to Pak Edi Suparno, Pak Agung Wicaksono, Ibu Lorena Bajo. And now, first, I'd like to show you this. Can you go to the next slide? First, within this sector, transportation accounts for around 22%, the third largest source. Therefore, emission reduction in the transportation sector is crucial to achieving Indonesia's emission reduction targets. Now, to ensure the sector contributes, the next slide, the sector contributes to 5 to 6.5%. Could you go to the next slide, please? To ensure the sector contributes 5 to 6.5% toward the national reduction target, Indonesia has integrated the decarbonization mandate into the national long-term and medium-term development plan, and the Ministry of Transport, and also to the Ministry of Transportation strategic plan. And in the aviation sector, the government has developed a roadmap for the SAF industry development, aiming to implement at least 1% SAF blending target at selected airports and for specific flight type by 2027. And we'll start with Soekarno-Hatta in Jakarta in Bali, because 80% of the international traffic comes from those two airports. And through the national mandate, Indonesia will monitor the use of SAF, and B, control the affordability of airfares. And Indonesia has the SAF ecosystem in alignment with the President's vision for energy resiliency, as well as investing in education. Next slide. I want to share 4 current efforts conducted currently by the government. First is the Indonesia Transport Decarbonization effort. Indonesia has achieved progress in transport decarbonization. In 2023, the transportation sector reduced 4 million tons of CO2, primarily from the development of the Northern Java double track railway and the Sumatra railway line by 49%. And the President just announced last week that Indonesia will expand the use of railway to Sumatra, Kalimantan, and Sulawesi. Second is the expansion of bus rapid transit system that contributes around 14%. And third, the development of the Jabodetabek Urban Railway, or the Jakarta and its three satellite cities. Moreover, if you look on the right side, the existing Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway is also expected to reduce emission by up to 95% compared to road transport, and 27% compared to conventional trains. And now I'm speaking from Bandung using the high-speed train, and that saves a lot of time at least from my perspective. The next slide. Second is Indonesia's second effort is mainstreaming decarbonization in the draft National Transportation System Law. To ensure policy coherence, the government is currently drafting the National Transportation System Law as an integrative legal framework across all transport modes. So if you look on the left side, there's each of the mode, it has its own law. The law on for roads, for maritime, for railway, shipping, and aviation, and road traffic and transportation. Hopefully, with this draft new law that will pass to the to our colleagues in the Parliament, hopefully by next year, the National Transportation Law will will integrate all the legal framework and giving certainty and clarity to all stakeholders. And this law will address regulatory fragmentation and provide the foundation for an efficient, interconnected, and low carbon transportation system nationally, including SAF regulation. And if you look on the right side of the figure, you will see that one of the chapters relates to decarbonization. How, although it is not clearly stipulated, but we will include one article that says that Indonesia is committed to reduction of to have the transportation sector reduced to zero by 2050 or 2060. That will depend later the discussion with the other sectors. So hopefully by having this law, will give us more mandate for the government to have a zero emission from the transportation sector. The third effort, next slide, please. Next slide, please. The seventh, right. So the third effort is Indonesia's integrated transportation decarbonization roadmap. Currently, we are now in the finalized progress with the Ministry of Transport to have an integrated transportation decarbonization roadmap and covering all modes of transport, which is scheduled for early completion in early January 2026. And the roadmap consists of four main components: baseline calculation, emission reduction target setting, mitigation action, and development of monitoring and reporting dashboard. We'll invite all key stakeholders to join us in the first town hall meeting that will be held at the end of January 2026. The coordinating ministry will have a discussion about this roadmap. The last effort that the government is currently doing, next slide please. The current effort, number 4, is government task force, the establishment of government task force and integrated transportation decarbonization roadmap. The coordinating ministry for has recently issued ministerial decree number 122 that establishes the national team for the acceleration of the SAF industry development. The previous speakers discussed about the importance of having a coordinated effort. Now, this national team is hopefully will integrate the policies of various ministries so that all the policy that will be made by government agency will be in line with the vision of the president. And the team consists of 3 working groups. First, on the SAF supply, second on the SAF demand, and the third one, enabler of SAF, as you can see in the presentation. The goal is to produce ISAC certified SAF using used cooking oil as feedstock that is already supplied to all Pelita Air commercial flights departing from Jakarta. Now, I want to end by highlighting 3 potential collaboration with partners. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Right. So the next step for the potential collaboration that I can offer. First, Indonesia welcomes and invites the participation of the international community in our collective journey toward achieving net zero emissions through 3 elements. First, participating in Indonesia's working group. We invite international airlines and other parties to address challenges in Indonesia's SAF ecosystem. So we hope most of you can join us in the discussion in the working group. It's an open-ended working group. Third, driving innovation through sustainable funding. We hope that 1% of revenue from the transportation and energy sector will be allocated to education and research. Third, building collaborative platform across borders, namely establishing a mutual partnership to learn from each other's experience in using developed SAF to reach carbon neutral. So I want to end by saying, by working together across government, industry, society, we can accelerate to the transition to a low carbon future. So I hope this discussion will enrich us so that we can come up with a better policy on how to implement SAF. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pak Odo, for sharing the perspective of the Indonesia's policy in decarbonizing the transportation sector. So before we continue, please allow me to raise a question perhaps. So following the inaugural flight with Pelita Air previously, what are the concrete short to medium term strategies to ensure that widespread adoption of UCO-based SAF by other domestic airlines or international airlines operating in Indonesia, and how to make it widely used? And another challenge is how to make its prices competitive against the fossil jet fuel for the airlines. Please, Pak Odo. I'm sorry, Pak Odo, I think the voice is...
Right, sorry, my apologies.
Thank you.
So the government will mandate for every biofuel producer to maintain stock availability through domestic market obligation and through a working group consisting of various ministries. And the government will produce several regulations. One of them will governing the selling price formula for biofuels, so it could maintain the stability of commodity prices in the market. But be mindful that now it's only being mandated for 1%, and 1% will not affect that much the pricing unless it reaches the mandate to 10%, 20%. Then it will have an effect on the price of the airfare. So at this stage, I think what is more important is to increase the awareness of the public, the public of the use of SAF. And in the long run, I think for every new technology, of course, it started with high price, but over the long run, it will decrease. So I think we should not be worried so much about the pricing, but we should be worried more about the acceptance by the public. I think that's my take on the issue at this.
All right, thank you very much, Pak Odo, for the presentation and explanation. And ladies and gentlemen, next we move to the industry perspective. Pak Agung Wicaksono, could you please share some strategic initiatives done by Pertamina in developing SAF in Indonesia? Please, time is yours, Pak.
Thank you, Pak Daniel. Honorable Member and Deputy Chairman of the People's Consultative Assembly, Dr. Edi Suparno, Excellency Deputy Coordinating Minister for Infrastructure and Regional Development, Pak Odo Manuhutu, my fellow panelists and newly found friend, Lorena from IPICA and friends from IPICA, and certainly also the distinguished guests in this forum here in Belém, Brazil, the heart of Amazon, as well as around the world connecting online, including Deputy Coordinating Minister of Economy, Pa Ellen Setiadi, and my dear friends from various government officials, Pertamina, as well as friends from Brazil. It's an honor to be here to share from Pertamina our perspective on what we've been doing, actually part of what our president of what our President Prabowo has commanded. Because biofuel, if we see SAF is actually part of biofuel, is actually something that is part of what the President called Asta Cita, his 8th vision for the country. And one of the elements of Asta Cita is about energy security and also green economy. And if we look at that from Asta Cita, we translate into what we have in Pertamina as dual growth strategy. And one of the engine of that dual growth strategy is about building low carbon business, especially on biofuel. So biofuel has been a success story in Indonesia from at least 3 different aspects. Number one, it's about energy security and self-sufficiency, because it has been able to reduce fuel import, especially through the use of what we call the B40 policy, how to utilize the blending of POME into our diesel product, where right now it allows us to no longer import diesel from anywhere. And we are now stepping into the second stage, which is on gasoline. And right now we're in Brazil. That is very correct to see how the success of ethanol would then be possibly being applied in Indonesia. We have right now already 5% blending of ethanol in a product that we call Pertamax Green 95. And the government is aiming to enhance that into E10. So 10% blending of ethanol. So that's on the fuel import reduction. Secondly is on the sustainability aspect, on emission reduction. So biodiesel obviously has much lower emission compared to fossil fuel-based gasoline. So it has reduced emission by more than 40 million tons of carbon with the B35, and now we have B40. Obviously it's going to be more by the end of the year, and next year we have B50, 50% of POME blended, of FAME blended in fuel that will even reduce emission further. And on the air with SAF, I think it will also contribute a lot, because up to 84% of emission reduction can come from SAF utilization. And at last, of course, it means something for the people, for the local economy. So through the use of biodiesel that we have been doing until now, there are about 8 million new jobs, local jobs created. And again, I'll be here in Brazil until the end of the week. So after the forum, I'll fly to Sao Paulo, meeting some of the Brazilian companies, because we also would like to learn how the benefit of ethanol for the local economy. And this is something that we in Indonesia will learn and get more from. So in the next slide, please. Now we are looking into what Pa Eddie has described before on the role of Southeast Asia as a hub, as a potential even global hub for sustainable aviation fuel. If we look at the map there of Southeast Asia is an important aspect, and especially also Indonesia. Obviously, our neighbors from Singapore, from Malaysia also play a role here, but only Indonesia here that you see are playing a role to export both the biofuel or the SAF and the UCO, while other will either be importing or exporting of the feedstock and the end product. So with that, Indonesia, especially with Pertamina, is very well positioned to have a circular model of UCO to SAF, or you call it USAF, between Pertamina, especially through our companies of Kilang Pertamina International, the refinery, and Pertamina Patraniaga, the commercial distribution. And you will see later we have our own airline, Pelita Air, that becomes a very important off-taker for the SAF. And there you see the graph that describes the supply and demand balance. As mentioned before, the high demand for UK as feedstock for SAF, meaning there has to be a right policy to ensure the supply of UCO for the production of SAF, but at the same time ensuring that the local businesses, the local economy also thrive. And at the same time, the supply of SAF, especially if I notice it will be more important for international flights, this is something that we will make Indonesia as potentially a global production hub and the global trade of SAF, given the feedstock availability and the growing capacity. We all know here, I think in this room also many Indonesians like to eat fritters, gorengan, so much. And therefore, it creates an abundant supply of Minyak Jelantah or used cooking oil. So the fritters might not be too good for the cholesterol level, but the used cooking oil will be very good for the sustainable aviation fuel. So in the next slide, we at Pertamina, we have developed this capacity since a decade ago, from 2015, where we started initiating a research on catalyst development. And then we work with a university, ITB, where we work on the catalyst development. And by 2021, we have already tested the SAF on CN-235 aircraft. And 2023, we also test SAF. At that time, we're not yet using the used cooking oil on Garuda Indonesia commercial aircraft. And in Bali last year, we have already embarked on commercializing SAF. At that time, also again, it was not yet our production, but Pertamina Patraniaga already started selling SAF to a customer at that time. It was Virgin Australia. And this year, 2025, as you see there from the picture, we have managed to produce and then supply and fly airlines using SAF from used cooking oil that we produce in Cilacap. And we are currently exploring that by 2026, I think there are a number of regulatory development. For example, our neighbor from Singapore will apply 1% mandate of SAF starting next year. And also various development also in the inter-European, air travels. We are aiming to explore how the certification system from ISCC can enable a credit transfer system so that we can supply SAF promoting the circular economy in Indonesia. And the next slide, please. So with that, we are showing how Indonesia is actually embarking on circular economy. As shown by Pa Eddie before, we have now about 35 collection points of UCO in various gas stations in Indonesia. So the household can come, pour the used cooking oil that they use, but there is a certain criteria. The used cooking oil cannot be too often, being overused, because otherwise it will not meet the criteria for, sustainability and the technical criteria. But then the household can exchange this for money. And this feedstock collected by Patraniaga, our company in the distribution sector, will supply to our refinery in Cilacap through a co-processing mechanism with kerosene. 2.5% of used cooking oil with kerosene then produce SAF that is being certified, and from that it will be distributed to the fuel terminal in airports. Now we use 2 airports only, Jakarta International Airport and Bali International Airport, because those 2 constitute about 90% of international airports from international travels from Indonesia. So this is about circular economy. We are creating impact for the local community. Majority of the supply obviously comes from industry, so from hotel, from restaurant, catering, but it also opens up possibility for household to contribute as well. And then also we work with a SME, with a startup called Novolume, who developed this digital UCO collection system so that it also enables, more participation by local companies. And in the next slide, this is where we are right now. Next page. This is where things happen. It's through our refinery, our kilang in Indonesian, in Cilacap, Central Java. Right now, our existing facility can produce about 238,000 kiloliter per year of SAF with 2.4% of the UCO, as I mentioned. Or it can also be used for producing HVO, hydrotreated vegetable oil. So, that's why I think government policy will be very important. Whether a special mandate for SAF will take place, whether, incentive for SAF will happen. Because otherwise, we can always shift from producing SAF to producing HVO. Yeah? And we are currently scaling up the Cilacap refinery so that the target in 2029, we can increase the SAF production to be 300,000 kiloliter per year in the form of neat SAF. So it's the full SAF. Yeah? It is still using UCO or also POME, and it is requiring an investment value of about 470 to 570 million US dollars. Currently, we are also putting this through the Bappenas process of Blue Book in finding green financing. Yeah? And also the next stage will be for our refinery in Sumatra, in Pelaju. So this is targeted to be 2030 to be operational, and this also will increase the production up to 1 million kiloliter per year of neat SAF. So yes, right now our Cilacap refinery as a pilot can produce 9 barrel per day of SAF, and this is now being used for our Pelita Air flights. But we're confident that this is going to be an opportunity not only for Indonesia to gain economic benefit, but especially also through circular economy. It helps how sustainability as a target, especially carbon emission reduction, can be accelerated in the air transport sector. And at last, we are aiming that the local economy will benefit as well. So with that, thank you very much, and I look forward for you to fly to Indonesia using SAF from Jakarta to Bali. Yeah, so what else can you do? Enjoying the beauty of Bali, but also contributing to the local economy and also to carbon emission reduction. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pak Agung, for sharing the big vision of Pertamina becoming a regional or global hub in the SAF production in the future. So, please allow me to continue with a question, Pak. In your perspective, how is Pertamina's strategy to develop national capacity for SAF production to meet the market's demand, sir?
Thank you. I think there are a number of aspects we need to look into when it comes to national capacity. Number one, Pak Eddie has mentioned about the feedstock. I think that's something very important. I think the right policy on feedstock securing, the UCO securing. But also what is important is the policy on the mandate on SAF. And I think with the role of Pa Odo, he was showing currently the draft bill on transportation, and I believe a point on sustainable transportation will be on that bill, and hopefully there will be a certain article that can be the basis for SAF mandate to be applied because its contribution toward emission reduction. But for Pertamina side, of course, what we need to do is on the production, research, and development side. So, for example, if you can look at one slide we have shown, since 2015, we embarked on research, especially on the catalyst. So the catalyst that we call red and white catalyst merah putih, because it's a homegrown catalyst. So our country, especially Pertamina, we need catalysts for all processing in our refinery, and so far we have imported a lot of those catalysts. But through a joint work between Pertamina, Pupuk Indonesia, another state-owned company, and a leading technical university, ITB, we established what we call catalyst merah putih, a catalyst product referring to the color of our national flag. And this catalyst then plays a role on how the feedstock, the UCO, with kerosene, using the catalyst from Indonesia, then was able to transform the 2.4% UCO into biojet fuel of SAF 2.4%. And now the capacity is about 238,000 kiloliter per annum. So again, this is a national capacity, but this is also, again, a circular economy and also something that speaks for sustainability. So I think it requires a concerted effort of collaboration, and we're very happy to hear Pa Edi, showing that it is at the highest level, at the People's Consultative Assembly, that will put this as a national agenda, and Pertamina will support through the industrial development as well as collaborating with the academia.
One more question, Pak. Interesting, if you don't mind. Yeah, it's regarding the circular economy, Pak. So, could you please elaborate more how Pertamina ensures that the development of the SAF ecosystem, especially through the UCO collection and processing, also creates tangible benefits for surrounding community, Pak?
Yes, I think we are here in Belém, Brazil, for obvious reason, because the Brazilian government would like to see how climate change also impacts, but also what kind of benefit it has for the local economy. So if you see at the next slide, also the UCO collection is an example of how SAF program will empower local communities. Yeah, so that's how housewives, or I think restaurant workers coming to the fuel collection site. This is fuel station, but that's not only a place where you get fuel for your car, but also a place where you supply used cooking oil for the company. And as I mentioned, that feedstock will go to our refinery, but it's not only the benefit through the refinery that we emphasize, but also surrounding the refinery. So the picture on the right, DEB stands for Desa Energi Berdikari, or basically an energy independent village of Kutawaru in Cilacap, surrounding the refinery facility. So Pertamina, through our foundation, Pertamina Foundation, work together with the local community through enhancing mangrove plantation. This mangrove is very important because it ensures the biodiversity surrounding the village in the area where the refinery is located can has an impact for the local community. So I was told that the village has a majority population of former sailor, former migrant workers. And when they come back to Indonesia, they might not have the right, livelihood. But through the mangrove plantation, And then through renewable energy development that we install in the village, for example, we built solar panel. We were able to develop what we call a kampung kepiting, a crab village. Because then the crab surrounding that area were able to be cultivated through a community-based program. And then that crab becomes obviously a very delicious, cuisine. And this become a place for culinary tourism, for locals as well as tourists to come and enjoy, what the mangrove plant was being planted enables the cultivation of crab, and it becomes a place for tourism. So here you see how the connection from used cooking oil, to refinery, to flying a jet, but also impacting the local economy. And I hope, more and more stories like this is the one that can be contributed, especially in a place where we have a climate change conference by the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak Agung. It's very, very, we have a very big hope that Pertamina can make it true. Very well, ladies and gentlemen. Finally, next I think we can go to the global perspective from Ms. Lorena Perez from IPIECA. Could you please share your perspective in strategic role of IPIECA in decarbonizing the transportation sector globally, including your engagement with UN body, of course, on low carbon and alternative fuels? Please, time is yours.
Thank you so much. And it's working? Okay. Thank you so much. And first of all, thank you to Pertamina for. I think it's working.
Is this?
Yeah? Is it? Okay. Now? Yeah, much better. Good. So first of all, thank you so much to Pertamina for this fantastic invitation. We are so pleased to be part of this very important discussion and these inspiring presentations. Really, truly appreciate that. So as you mentioned, maybe I could start with the big picture and maybe mentioning the dual challenge that our industry is facing. On one hand, supporting. No. Brilliant. So on one hand, we are supporting the transition to a lower emissions future, but at the same time, meeting the energy needs of the growing global population. So maybe for those of you who don't know IPIECA, if you allow me to introduce ourselves, IPIECA is a non-lobby global oil and gas association. We were founded in 1974 at the request of UNEP, the UN Environment Programme, as the main channel of communication between the UN and the global industry. Our main goal back 51 years ago was mostly on environmental and climate issues, and over these 51 years, so we have been creating impactful relationships with UN bodies, NGOs, academia to cover the broad spectrum of sustainability issues. So not just environmental and climate, but also people and sustainability, climate and native biodiversity and ecosystem services, water just transition and so on. And we are doing this with the expertise of our members, Pertamina, one of them. They include international oil and gas companies, national oil and gas companies, independent services, and associations around the world. So maybe let's talk about a powerful enabler, and I'm very pleased to hear that it was also noted during the opening remarks of this COP, which is technological and digital transformations. So these are just not fancy words, but they are really truly enablers and key to decarbonize the transport sector. There is clearly no silver bullet for transport, and everything will be needed to allow to the decarbonation from LPG, LNG, biofuels, biomethane, and in the long future potential e-fuels, and each of them will be playing a role in this journey. So IPIECA is actively collaborating with UN bodies, including UNEP, IMO, the International Maritime Organization, and ICAO, International Civil Aviation Observation, to provide technical input and scientific knowledge to support the decarbonization strategies. So just give an example on ICAO. We are providing technical input in their assessment and advancement of low carbon aviation fuels, LCAF and SAF, and making sure that the industry can align their efforts with these international climate frameworks. So for IPICA, through practical guidance, through collaboration, through setting best practice, we are helping the industry players to reduce their operational emissions, to develop lower carbon products, and also to share innovation and technologies for the wider industry. So to your point on engagement with UN, what does the engagement with UN bodies look like in practice? So maybe starting with mentioning that IPICA has been an observer organization for the IMO in maritime since 1995, and for aviation a little bit less since 2021, but we have been actively involving with them, supporting them since 2019. And both shipping and aviation are characterized for capital-intensive, built, long-life assets and rely on energy industry, which is critical for the decarbonization. So clearly, and I think I will be echoing all of the presentations, technical innovations, robust regulations and coordinated actions across all of the points of the supply chain are actually critical to support the decarbonization of the road, of the air, and on the sea as well. So our approach to the IMO is technology neutral, and we support full life cycle assessment of greenhouse gas emissions approach, and also frameworks that allow producers and users to report the actual and certified emissions, just making sure that there is a level playing field for innovation and deliver these technologies. For ICAO, for aviation, we have been providing technical input to the Committee on CAEP, Committee on Aviation Environmental Protection, on topics like LCAF, SAF, but also on sustainability criteria, feedstock evaluation, co-processing that you mentioned, and CCS. And in the future on ICAO particularly, as low carbon aviation fuels can complement sustainable aviation fuels, we will continue to support ICAO on these very important work streams. But maybe, if I may, I would like to zoom in a little bit more on biofuels. Clearly, biofuels are not the only type of sustainable aviation fuels, but are the most common and more available right now. And even though in IPICA we are technology neutral, we have been exploring the topic of biofuels a little bit. We are updating fact sheet document with our members, still working on all of the details, but I thought that I will share some of the discussions that we have been having until now on that. So alongside electrifications, biofuels are one of the most critical levers to decarbonize the heavy transport sector, including aviation, shipping, and the road. And we need to consider also that biofuels are coming in many forms, and it depends with many different production methods and fuel types and also end users. So sustainability is not a given. It depends on the feedstock that is used, on the sustainability criteria that it meets, and also in the strength of the assurance process. And of course, there are many different perceptions of sustainability for many different stakeholders, from government, from industry, but also from civil society. So we need to keep that in our minds when we are working on biofuels, and making sure that we are extracting all of the facts to make sure that biofuels are actually part of the solution to energy transition, lower carbon emissions future. I'm amazed with the examples that you have been sharing in here in terms of the use of using cooking oil to produce SAF. If I may, maybe I would like to add another example from one of our other members, but just to make a final conclusion, and is Suncor in Canada. They have been working a lot on ethanol, producing ethanol from corn starch, and now they are exploring to do this from municipal wastes. And last year, they also were part of this launch of the plant for ethanol to SAF, planning to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, as you mentioned, heavily by around 70% and power over 1,000 aviation commercial flights. And all of these examples are showing that the trajectory is not linear, is diverse, is evolving, and we need clear, robust policies. We need innovation, but we also need international collaboration. We need cooperation, including all of the parts of the supply chain. So maybe some final thoughts and key takeaways for me. Decarbonizing aviation and shipping or hard-to-heavy sector is not something that can be done by a single industry or government. It's a cross international collaboration among others, and the IMO and ICAO should be also leading on this road. And I would also like to mention the quality of the frameworks because they will be key to decide how fast the transport sector is moving. And so these frameworks should consider a full life cycle analysis of emissions, but also clear investments, while at the same time safeguarding competitiveness of the industry can plant, can innovate, and can deliver. So, all in all, the journey might be complex, but it can be very, very feasible, and the examples in here are a demonstration of that with robust policies and regulations, with innovation, and also with international cross-sector collaboration.
Thank you, Ms. Lorena. Well, given the limitation of renewable feedstocks, and global supply competition, such as used cooking oil or biomass, in your opinion, what are the most critical sustainability challenge IPEK has identified, such as indirect land use change, maybe, or water and food conflicts in scaling up the SAF production?
Good question. So I guess that when we are considering about sustainable aviation fuels, we need to take into account sustainability across the board. So when we are thinking about the ramp up of biofuels, we need to consider as well food security, but also the pressures on land and water, and don't forget about the broader social impacts that you have been mentioning in here. So I guess we will need environmental and social safeguard, just to make sure that biofuels are not growing at the expenses of the environment or of the communities. And there might be required as well robust life cycle analysis, considering feedstock sources, but also processing, transport, and the end use, I guess. So this is not about carbon intensity only, it's about the broader environmental and social footprint, and it's also considering food security, land rights, and social impact. So for biofuels to be truly sustainable, sustainability is a step that needs to be happening in every single process of the production. And I guess that one more point to that is ensuring credibility. So it's the need of robust assurance mechanisms are put in place and are followed very closely. So I will say that sustainability isn't just a label. This is a process that required transparency, that required collaboration, that required innovation, and that required support from regulations and policies.
One more, if you don't mind, please. Can you give us an example, maybe, of an underestimated opportunity surrounding energy sector of SAF in next 5 to 10 years?
So it was something that might have been a little bit overlooked is bioenergy with CCS. So to put it simple, we are using biomass to produce energy and then trap CO2 and store underneath. And on the IPCC, BECCS, bioenergy with CCS, is considered as one of the key levers to achieve the aims of the Paris Agreement. So if we could combine BECCS with SAF, we could have, the potential will be huge. We could have even net negative emissions. So I guess that as well as carbon accounting is evolving, it could unlock new value streams. So it's not just about having sustainable aviation fuels credits, but also carbon removal credits. However, I think this is still a long way to maybe getting there, and it will be needed a little bit more of investment, a little bit more of research, and a little bit more of collaboration, similarly of what has been happening here to transform this ambition into a real action.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lorena, and thank you to all panelists. I think before we conclude the session with closing remark from Mr. Edi Suparno, it is not fair not to give opportunity to the audience raising a question. I think we have quite limited time here, maybe one or two questions perhaps. Please your hand and mention your name and your affiliation. From any audience, please. And any question? Very well. Otherwise, maybe I should hand the microphone to Pak Edi Suparno to give closing remarks. Pak, please, time is yours.
Thank you. Before we close this session, ladies and gentlemen, I think we should go back to the basics. That the airline industry, aside from obviously the shipping industry, is one of the industries hard to abate industries. So getting to lower down any carbon emissions from either the airline and the shipping industry should be our priorities. There's a school of thought today that airline emissions, carbon emissions from the airline only contribute to 2% of global carbon emissions. But let me assure you that Indonesians' preference for flying is extremely high, and we see more and more Indonesians wanting to fly, and an increase in airlines in Indonesia, including the number of airplanes flying in and out of Indonesia and within the national border. So it's very important for us to consistently push for sustainable aviation fuel. I think Pertamina is doing a great job in increasing their capacity. First of all, I would like to remind you that one, we will aim to reduce up to 500,000 tons of CO2 equivalent going forward in carbon emissions. We will increase our small to medium scale businesses. The collection system will, in the households and communities, will increase small to scale, medium scale businesses. The circular economy will also be strengthened, and we expect to create up to 30,000 of new and green jobs across the country. So this is very important, and I hope this session is very informative for all of us, so that sustainable aviation fuel could be very strong on our agenda going forward. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Edi. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the message is clear. Sustainable aviation fuel is the net zero engine for aviation. Well, finally, I think my sincere thanks to Mr. Edi Suparno, Mr. Odo Manhutu, and Mr. Agung Wicaksono, Miss Lorena Perez, and for sharing your invaluable expertise here. So thank you for all of you joining us here at COP30, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.